Hi and welcome to AXSChat. I'm delighted that we've got a friend of ours today, Jake Abma, joining us from ING Netherlands. Jake is responsible for accessibility for ING in the Netherlands, which is obviously a large Dutch bank, in case you weren't aware. Big orange coloured logo, big lion, all good. Matches the national football team strip. So welcome, Jake. Delighted to have you with us. It's been a real pleasure to know you the last couple of years. I'm really glad to have you on finally.
Hi Neil, thank you. Hi Deborah, hi Antonio. How are you doing?
We're all good, thank you.
Great.
So I'm really interested to know how you got started in accessibility and how you ended up doing stuff for both ING and also for the UN.
Okay, well, sure. Coming from a design background and a UX background, I grew to the front-end development with a specialization for CSS. It's the cascading style sheet which provides the visual design for websites. And working and building and keeping large websites under control, it requires a lot of in-depth knowledge, especially when working on the large CSS systems. At the large companies, I worked for a couple of large companies. So in my work, by studying the technical standards and having the design background in which you work with personas and with user testing, that really gave me a head start for accessibility. And for my work, I studied a lot of the WCAG standards, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and the standards itself, together with my personal experiences with people around me, having trouble with the internet, that really opened my eyes for accessibility. So in my work, I really started putting accessibility on the agenda 6-7 years ago. And since 3 years now, I dedicate my total professional life to accessibility. And so that was also the time when I started to look around how I can get more involved internationally, doing a little bit of work for the United Nations, trying to get involved in international working groups to help accessibility be put more on the agenda. So that's basically the basis where I started the accessibility work for myself.
So very interested to. Obviously, I know that you're contributing to the WCAG list. I see you popping up on there from time to time when I sort of checking the 300 unread emails in my WCAG folder.
Yeah.
So so obviously, as a bank, you do lots of things. You've obviously got websites, but you've also got other products and services as well. So you've got, for instance, mobile apps and so on. So do you get involved in the development of all of the mobile stuff?
Yes, we do, but the focus of my team is especially focused on the ICT part for web and not specifically native app. But if we look at ING itself, we promote diversity first of all because it's the right thing to do. So we try to meet the needs of a broad customer base, individuals, families, small businesses, large corporations, institutions, and governments. So to wrap it a little bit up, our customers are at the heart of what we do. And therefore it's not only ICT and not only the website. The purpose for the company is empowering people to stay a step ahead in life and in business. And that means all the products and services we deliver. So besides the purpose to stay a step ahead in life and in business, diversity is also good for business because different perspectives drive innovation. It accelerates growth and lead to a more robust decision and outcomes. And you can see that back in our products. So we have products like a card puller. We are really working on putting the ATMs, making the ATMs accessible, be sure to make the mobile app accessible, but also related products. So we are focusing on a lot of departments on accessibility, but what my team does is specifically the ICT part for accessibility.
Okay. Deborah, I know you have a question.
Yeah, Jake, welcome to the program. We, as Neil said, we've known you for a couple of years, so we're excited to, feature you on the program. So I am familiar with ING, but I want to make sure that everybody is familiar. So ING is a global brand, correct, Jake?
Yeah, sure.
Where are some of the countries that ING is located, just to give some examples to the viewers?
Well, we in more than 40 countries worldwide. So you can think of from Australia to the whole of Europe, South America. So there's a lot of different countries around the world. And I guess we have like 200 countries. So 1 in every 5 countries around the world, ING is active.
Wow, that's impressive. And I know that you're looking at this. You started this in Holland, and then you're branching out to the rest of the organization. But you were very aggressive with how you started it in Holland. I know that you did training right out. You brought in different experts, and you talked a little bit about what motivated you to do this. But it's just impressive to see what one person can do. And I know you have an amazing team. I've met several of your team members. They're very impressive too. But why do you care so much about it? I mean, we're so glad that you do, and we also care so much about this topic. But you're a global leader, Jake. We're seeing you everywhere. So, tell us why this is such an important thing to you as an individual.
Well, to me as an individual, but at this time, gladly I can say that at the whole of ING we promote diversity, and first of all, just because it's the right thing to do. Let's make that clear. And besides that, we try to meet the needs of the broad customer base. So that's basically why we are very happy to work on accessibility. So did that answer your question, or?
I think
it did. And Jake, I think.
Go on, Deborah.
Yeah. Well, no, I was just going to say that one thing that we're seeing as we look at this from a global lens is that financial institutions like ING are really, really taking the lead on this. I know also, system integrators like ATOS as well. But I think it's just an important point that, you're supporting the UN CRPD, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. As Neil mentioned earlier, you're engaged in W3C. I know you're about to come again and speak at the M-Enabling Summit, but you're doing quite a bit of work, you and your small team. And has your team grown as you've continued to work on this?
Well, the team didn't grow, but we constantly replacing the focus for accessibility. And that is especially because accessibility is a really interesting topic. First of all, because it hasn't been part for our focus for a long time. So when you talk about accessibility, the first thing you need to do is creating the awareness. So the first year, we started out as a working group, and the working group contained 6-7 people from different departments, and we try to make a plan and see where we can create momentum for accessibility. And the first thing you need to do is you just need to create the awareness. But when the awareness kicks in, basically you're up for the next step. You have momentum to work on accessibility. And then there is a moment that people come to you and they say, well, accessibility, we really need to do something about accessibility, but what is the next step? What can I do to make my product more accessible? And at that moment, you like need to create a baseline for a lot of people, because we have a lot of people working around here, like 1,000-2,000 people. If they all come to you and ask about what they could do, well, basically you're all day answering the questions. So you need to create a baseline and point people to that baseline. And to create the baseline, you just need a couple of people who set up the baseline. And then at least you have all the people following the first steps. And from within from within the ING, we call it getting started, and it's 9 steps to get started with accessibility, and that's what we work out. And we end up with 4 people from within the core accessibility team. But on the other side, we are creating accessibility champions. And in the end, it's like the teacher model, and in the end, they are the persons who should make sure that accessibility will be part of the ING DNA.
Okay.
So you're making it part of the process. So Neil, over to you.
Yeah. So I think the thing that Deborah was asking about, and I was interested in, was a lot of people get into accessibility because there's a personal connection, and so we were kind of wondering whether or not there was a personal connection that motivated you, but it seems just like that it was pure altruistic interest and because it was the right thing to do. Is that correct?
Well, partly it is along the way when I was focusing more on my part of user experience, and my part of creating beautiful products, and especially the mix between design, user experience, and front-end technology. When you follow the standards, there will be a moment that you will go by all the standards from the W3C. So you get the information for free about accessibility. On the other hand, there's also people around me. Of course, my own mother, who has trouble using the internet and really having trouble with using Skype, for instance, and using their mail. So you experience a lot of problems for what we call, we are the people who make the internet, and we are very aware of what's possible and what's not possible, but we take it for granted. And a lot of people around me, friends, family, the neighbors, I see that they have a lot of problems using the same products, which I think, well, I take it for granted, it's really easy, but it's not for everyone. So that mix together made me realize we really have to do and spend more time on accessibility. And when you really get involved into accessibility, but I don't have to tell you guys, when you really get involved into accessibility, first of all, you will be a little bit overwhelmed of all the information about accessibility and all for myself, the technical parts which need to be resolved. But when you're really into accessibility, it opens up a whole new world of inclusive design and inclusive products, which serves even people without disabilities. So that's really gets you motivated to make more beautiful and more better products than ever before.
Great. I know Antonio's got a question. I'm just really glad that you're talking about beautiful and accessible products at the same time, because it is possible. Antonio?
Well, Jake, I'm based in Ireland, and you are being an ambassador of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Ireland is one of the countries that haven't signed it yet. So it was supposed to sign it last year. I know it was post-noted. So what I would like to ask is, based in your experience as as working in accessibility, as being in the country where accessibility is important, what you see as important when a country needs to implement the United Nations conventions? What are any type of lessons learned that you can talk us about?
To get your question right, can you a little bit repeat the basics of the question?
So what? So considering that Ireland haven't signed the United Nations Conventions for the Rights of
Yep.
People with Disabilities, and based in your experience, what type of advice would you provide when for people working in the country and need to implement that from the start?
Well, we can be very happy at the moment because these days accessibility is not really the technical challenge anymore. As the standards for accessibility are maturing, it's more a management challenge at this moment. So every company or even the government, when they want to build even better products than before, so we can serve an inclusive society. We see that with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, we see in a lot of countries that it has become a legal requirement all over the world. That really helps the progress in a lot of countries. In this case, not in Ireland, because they're probably the last one in Europe not signing the agreement. But the real challenge is not that it is part of the law. It's more a question of from must to management. That is really the challenge nowadays for big companies. Also for small companies, but also for big companies. How do you manage accessibility within the company? And as we can see, and that's really from experiences and also what I've heard a lot from people working at big companies, working on accessibility, that every company is different. All the government departments are different. And it's not really the technical challenge, as I told you, that is the challenge anymore, but finding a way to look at an accessibility framework and to see how we can embed it into the way of work for specific departments or companies. But it all starts out with awareness. So starting out with awareness sessions and looking at places where to fix the low-hanging fruits, that really helps putting accessibility on the map. And when you get people motivated and when you show people what inclusive design really means and how beautiful it can be, that creates a lot of synergy, and from that synergy you get basically in the end you get more automated accessibility solutions.
Excellent. So I just want to pick up one point. Ireland has actually signed UN CRPD. It's just not been ratified. So you can be a signatory and still do Sweet FA. And that's a bit like our friends in the US as well, because it's not been ratified there either. So and even those of us that have ratified can still roll back stuff, as we've found in the UK. So I think we do quite often take one step forward, 2 steps back, or 2 steps forward, 1 step back, because politics and other things change, and you get these waves and movements in society, and so it's not a simple path that we're walking towards inclusion. I'm also very interested in the mechanics and the management of accessibility, as you know, Jake. So and I know you're also in contact with the guys at Barclays. So we've done quite a lot of work together on things like accessibility maturity models and so on. So is that the kind of tool that you'd be using within your organization to measure and work out strategic direction? Because it's not organization specific, but it's a way of looking at things, and of course, working in IT, everybody understands maturity models.
Yes, we do, but I studied a couple of different models. The one you're talking about, which Barclays has set up, and you have provided a lot of work on that accessibility model from the Technology Task Force. It's really a good model. There are also some other models from other companies around the world, but basically they come all down to the same. It's all about monitoring, it's all about testing, it's about the development life cycle, it's about procurement, about the basics of the models. They have a lot of overlap. And how we did it is we started out as a working group, And we have grown into a digital dedicated squad to work on the digital parts of accessibility. And what we did is we took different frameworks and tried to create a little bit of our own framework. So 95% stayed the same, but we adjusted it a little bit because ING is ING and other companies are other companies. So the process from the requirements, design, the user experience to develop, to development. Basically, what we focused on was the development life cycle, and that is because I work on the ICT part of the development life cycle, and we took part of the different frameworks. So we added monitoring testing to it, and we added training to it. It's also part of what my team does, and we make sure that the roles and responsibilities are clear, and that is part of all the frameworks. We create the guidelines, the checklists, we create the testing methods, but also the tools. And we do the audit and the monitoring, amongst other things. And so we made a blend of the frameworks, but sure, we try to follow it. And what is really good about the frameworks is that you have an idea where you're at the moment. So of course we also work with the level 1 through level 5, as all the frameworks do, and we try to map the different departments or the different products on the different levels, and we try to see which level we can improve to go to the next level. So sometimes it's really necessary to focus on certain parts of the development life cycle to bring to the next level before other parts can also go to the next level, because you have an interrelationship with each other. So to make a little bit of a shorter answer, yes, we do. We use the frameworks, but we made it a little bit ING specific.
Okay, great. Deborah, I know you've got another question. Are you on mute still?
Maybe I am on mute. It's always good for me to be on mute because I'm interrupting. So, so the best for me to go on mute. But Jake, you already answered this question a little bit, but as we know, accessibility, ICT accessibility, to really blend it into an organization as large as ING, you've got to really do it at a process level. So I know it's been interesting to watch, and it's fascinating. Sometimes when I'm talking to our clients, they'll say, oh, we're so late to the game. And I'm like, well, you're not really completely late to the game because a lot of us are figuring it out. So it's been really interesting to see ING come in, maybe what some people would consider late to the game, and yet you've moved forward very quickly, but very methodically. And so I thought that was, I think it's very interesting to watch, you know, what you've accomplished in such a quick manner. I know you're a very clever guy, and you have an amazing team, but and I think a lot of the work, like Neil was mentioning, that others are doing, the business-to-business collaborations that we're seeing happening by some of the UN agencies, including the International Labor Organization, which ATOS just joined. But I think more and more as other large organizations like ING join, they will be able to learn a lot from the work that you're doing. So have you found that as you're stepping through the processes, do you find that the people in the Netherlands working at ING, are they embracing this? Is this something that they found, Jake, that they just weren't aware of, which a lot of us, you know, before we came into accessibility, you know, we did that. But is there, you know, do you find that that people are embracing, you know, the processes that you're building into ING to assure accessibility for all?
Yes, sure. And step by step, it gets more embraced day by day. What we see here is that accessibility hasn't been part of education for a long time, and this has been the main reason. It wasn't in our field of view, and to me it says, hey, we need to catch up really fast, but it all starts with awareness. And when awareness, when aware of the accessibility challenges and the inclusive solutions, employees really really get motivated to work on it. So we make sure we do the awareness sessions, we do the awareness presentations, and we have also experienced that ad hoc solutions by fixing only the technical part of accessibility and not providing training, uh, that will just not be sustainable. So besides bringing the awareness, we started to give champion training. So we have champion training on a weekly basis, and that's really the key for security, for securing accessibility on the long run. So what's also really interesting to say here is that you should not only train the developers, but you should train managers, product owners, people who make requirements, the UXers, the designers. Everyone has their role and their responsibility within accessibility, and it's what we have learned from within my team is that first we were focusing a lot. We had a very broad focus, and we tried to create all the guidelines and the success criteria for people to follow. But at this time, my team spends like more than 50% of our time purely on training. It's like a teach the teacher model. And by educating and working together on solutions also creates a lot of synergy. And in the end, that results in even better products for our customers. So you see a major shift from bringing the awareness on a lot of departments, and then you get the momentum to where we are now, and that is focusing on really training what accessibility means, and make sure that that all teams working, in my case on the front end, that a lot of teams have at least one accessibility champion in their team, and he will be the person who will spread the accessibility information within the teams.
So hopefully, after 10 years of signing the United Nations conventions, Ireland will finally bring that to life in this year. But following your what you were saying now, we have a new regulation from the European Union that came this year. What you see, what positive impact you see that bringing to governments and business? How will that somehow force people to take accessibility to a different level, even at the university level, where it will probably highlight one of the things that are a little bit broken in the area of education at university level, where the topics like accessibility as not being considered as a priority. So do you see this new legislation as something that can bring a very positive impact to make change in Europe?
And I think you're specifically talking about the European Accessibility Act?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the Accessibility Act is there's a lot going on with the Accessibility Act. First of all, that is really nice to mention that parts of the Accessibility Act was based on the legislation in the US, and Australia has also adopted the European Accessibility Act. And what the Accessibility Act does is well, it's two things. First of all, it's trying to cover not only web accessibility, but also electronic files like PDF, like emails, like PowerPoint presentations. It will also cover native applications, which wasn't part of the WCAG standard. So that's really great that that the new focus is on more digital products and services, and that will make a big difference. On the other side, what the European Accessibility Act is trying to do is to level legislation. And that is to promote innovation and to promote also that to go back to the ratification of the CRPD. The CRPD is a blueprint for legislation, but there are different countries who embedded the CRPD in just a slightly different way. So when we look at the Netherlands, we did not only have the 4 principles of WCAG, but we added a 5th level. That meant that if you built a really great product in Spain or in Germany and you wanted to ship it over to the Netherlands, then you still had to follow the Dutch specific guidelines. And so there were different countries in Europe who embedded it just a little bit. And Europe is trying to make sure that the implementation is leveled all around Europe. So when you build a product in Germany, you can ship it straight over to Spain, or you can ship it straight over to the Netherlands. That's really important because we in the Netherlands, we also started working together with other ING countries on the same technical products, on the same websites, on the same native app products. So you won't get into trouble, you will promote innovation. And that's really what Europe is trying to do. So they are not trying to come up with even more new legislation. They also have a specific focus on, for instance, banking services, and that goes even broader than only the ICT part of accessibility. So they will also make sure that ATMs, for instance, are good accessible, and that at the branches that the accessibility is up to date all over Europe. So the European Accessibility Act is trying to make sure that all the good initiatives already there from within a lot of countries will be generic, and that will result in, on one side, more awareness, but on the other side, also products who will be universally usable and shippable.
No,
Yeah,
we know that at some level European Union projects are somehow trying to push also open source in order to connect things. What are your views on that?
On open source in general?
Yes.
Well, of course, open source, it's already in the name. It creates a little bit for the open world. And that's a really good part of open source. And when you look at the Netherlands, the first thing you should look at is open source products before you even look at other products. But that's from a government perspective. So it's a little bit more difficult when you have a business model and open source is not the model you have chosen for as a company. So that makes it a little bit more difficult. But open source in general is, of course, always good for accessibility. We can see that with a lot of open source products, an open source screen reader, free to use, where a lot of people are working on it. And you see that in the specific screen readers where they have an open source model, you also see that they follow the standards pretty well. So they're really usable. And they're available for a lot of people. So that makes the world a little bit better, also for accessibility, of course.
Great. It's okay. I think I've lost my thread as far as the questions going. Deborah, did you have a final comment before we close? Because I think we're pretty much on the half hour.
Yeah, I did. The only comment that I'm going to make is that, and this is for a whole nother conversation, but one thing that I'm starting to talk more and more about, we've been talking a lot about accessibility and how it ties in the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. I, like Antonio, am sad that I think it's great the U.S. and Ireland signed the convention, but I'm sad that the United States and Ireland have not taken leadership and gone ahead and ratified the convention. But hopefully we will in the future. I have a feeling Ireland will do it before the U.S. But another thing that I've started to talk about a lot more in the work that I'm doing with the United Nations is the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. And they, to me, really tie into what we're talking about as well, the accessibility. And, it's just really important that everyone be included. So I want to thank you, Jake, for the leadership that you're showing in the Netherlands and around the world with the efforts that you're making in the different groups, the W3C, IAAP, you've been, a leader in, and once again, you're speaking at the M-Enabling, but it takes all of us doing this. So applause to you, Jake, for your leadership. And thanks for letting me make the final comment, Neil.
Oh, you're welcome. So thank you, Jake. It's been great chatting with you. We'll see you in Washington.
Thank you.
Bye, Jake.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.